Hello, everybody, for another episode, a big episode. This one's big, folks, if you've been following Canadian immigration this week. Woo! Anyways, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Visto Show. I am your host, Josh Schachnow, Canadian immigration lawyer and CEO here at Visto.ai. Today is Friday, September the 20th. How has so much of September already gone by, you ask? I don't know, but it continues to fly. Anyways, hope you're doing well. Please feel free, if you're tuning in live on LinkedIn, which I always recommend, to take part in the conversation. Drop a hello in the chat. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Let me know how your Friday is going. If you are tuning in after the fact on LinkedIn or perhaps on YouTube, make sure to join in live on LinkedIn. Because what happens is you can take part in the conversation. You can add your thoughts, your comments, your questions, all that fun stuff. Either way, hope your day is going well. Hopefully it's about to get a little bit better because we have a lot of Canadian immigration news to cover. I'm going to jump right in because number one, I only have about 40 minutes max for this episode. And number two, holy moly, do we have a lot. The Canadian immigration world is the gift that keeps on giving in terms of new stuff to talk about, because major changes and releases continue to happen seemingly every week at this point. So anyways, as you can see from the agenda on the left, we are going to talk about the major announcement this week that largely affected temporary residence programs. We're going to talk about the odd express entry draws from last week and my thoughts on all of the above. And then we'll talk about some Visto stuff, the Canadian Immigration Pros podcast, some big tech launches we had this week, and then any Q&A. And wrap it up from there. So let's jump the heck in. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to talk about the big news from this week. Now, I'm going to throw the link in the comments. So if you are with me on LinkedIn, please feel free to check the comments to find the link if you want to follow along. If you're watching after the fact on YouTube, these links will be in the description in the order that I linked them in as well. Ain't that convenient? All right, so this week, September 18th, 2 days ago, that means Wednesday, if you're watching this on Friday, IRCC made a big announcement strengthening temporary residence programs for sustainable volume. Now, I'm not going to read every word of this announcement, right? Usually because the first paragraph or two is just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. Earlier this year, IRCC announced a decrease in the number of temporary residents from 6.5% to 5%. To achieve this goal, the federal government is taking action to manage the increase of temporary residents and hold employers misusing the system accountable. Now keep this sentence in mind. Hold employers misusing the system accountable, manage the increase, blah, blah, blah. We are reforming the international student program, tightening eligibility requirements for temporary foreign workers, enforcing employer compliance more strictly, and making LMIAs more rigorous to mitigate fraud and more. To ensure the temporary residents we welcome to Canada can be supported adequately, the Honourable Mark Miller, Minister of Immigration, today announced additional measures to manage the volume of temporary resident arrivals, uphold the integrity of our immigration system, and protect vulnerable people. Let's jump in. This is the meat right here. So, Sharma says, hi, Josh. Hey, Sharma, how are you? Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. Please feel free to continue taking part in the conversation if you folks have questions or thoughts on this as well. So let's jump into the first one, a big one. We are announcing a further reduction in the intake cap on international student study permits for 2025 based on a 10% reduction from the 2024 target of 485,000 new study permits, and then stabilizing the intake for 2026 such that the number of study permits issued remains the same as 2025. For 2025, this means reducing study permits issued to 437,000. So basically, end of last year or early this year, the government officially put in place a cap on study permits. What they're saying here is that they're going to put a further reduction on that cap to 437,000, and they're also going to continue that beyond 2025 into 2026. So long story short is they're going to further cap and hold permanent that cap for an extra year. Maybe we'll go through all of them quickly, and then we'll talk about our thoughts and opinions. Update. You know what? Let's talk about each one point at a time because each one's kind of big. What are my thoughts on this? I don't know. I don't think it's too crazy of a change. I don't think it's too surprising of a change. I think it's probably a much needed change, right? The study permit industry just has ballooned over the last 10 years due to virtually zero regulation whatsoever from anybody. So, are caps always the answer? Not necessarily. I think there's a lot more ways that they could regulate and improve this industry. But I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing because we quite frankly just have too many people coming into Canada to study every year. So I think it's a good thing. I don't think it's enough, and we'll talk about that at the end, but I think it's a good move. Let me know what you think, if you agree, disagree, in the comments. Updating the postgraduate work permit program this fall to better align with immigration goals and labor market needs. Now, this is all they've provided right now, so I don't know what this means. Right, this fall, so probably in the next month or two, to better align with immigration goals. Don't know what that means, and market needs. Maybe labor market needs means that, the PGWP is only going to be available to certain types of students with certain types of degrees like STEM and healthcare, whatever. I don't really know what it means with immigration goals. I guess it's some of the broader goals. Like if you click on the federal government is taking action here, you'll see they're kind of like general plan. So they're probably going to make, more stuff to be in line with stuff like this. So we'll have more details on this in probably the next few months. Limiting work permit eligibility later this year to spouses of master's degree students to only those whose program is at least 16 months in duration. Limiting work permit eligibility later this year to spouses of master's degree students to only those whose program is... So if I'm reading this correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you can only get a spousal open work permit if your spouse is at a master's degree that will be 16 months or longer. So if they're taking a master's degree that's shorter than 16 months, you, if you're the spouse, would not be eligible for a spousal open work permit. Is this good or not? I don't know. I mean, I have conflicting thoughts about this. I know there's a lot of people that are very much against spousal open work permits. I happen to take the stance that spousal open work permits in general are a good thing because if we want to attract the best and brightest, they're going to want to be able to bring a spouse if they have one, right? So I personally think the better way to regulate this is more heavily regulate the international students and what programs they can take and where they can take them. And if we're attracting the right kind of students for the right programs at good schools for good programs that meet our labor market needs, and we want to attract the best and brightest of those students, I think you should let all of them bring their spouses because that's what's going to attract the best and brightest, right? If you are the smart, I'm just going to use a random title and country as an example. If you are the smartest high school graduate or bachelor's degree graduate in India, and you're thinking about where to go study, you want to leave, you want to go abroad for whatever reason. If students are looking at potentially multiple countries. If I'm Canada and I want to attract the best and the brightest students, I want it to be as appealing as possible, right? Now, again, there's a lot of ifs that I'm adding, which is like, if we're attracting the best students, if we're actually regulating which programs they can take and which schools they can go to, then they should all be allowed to bring their spouse. But that's not currently how the system works, and I'll talk about that in a minute as well. So anyways, that's my take there. Limiting work permit eligibility later this year to spouses of foreign workers in management or professional occupations or in sectors with labor shortages under Canada's work permit programs, TFWP and IMP. So let's break this down a little bit. If you come to Canada under a closed work permit or sometimes an open work permit, it typically falls under either the Temporary Foreign Worker Program or the International Mobility Program. Until, I don't know, sometime this year, if you came on one of these work permits, your spouse could come on a spousal open work permit, right? what they've started doing is regulating both the spouses and the workers, right? So basically what they're saying is, if you come on a work permit through these programs, you're not guaranteed to, your spouse is not guaranteed to be eligible for a spousal open work permit. In this case, the only foreign workers whose spouses will be eligible are if they're in management or professional occupations or in sectors with labor shortages. So I'm assuming they're going to designate, later this year, they're going to specify exactly which sectors, right? If we can follow things like express entry, our best guesses could probably be sectors like healthcare and agriculture and maybe STEM, maybe transpo, et cetera, et cetera. Again, do I think this is a great change? I personally do not. And I know there's some people who really do think that capping the spousal open work permits is a good idea. I personally think that it won't fix any problems. And it's for two reasons. Number one, again, the core problems here have nothing to do with spouses. The core problems here happens to do with all the fraud and BS that goes on with LMIAs and closed work permits. If they fixed the TFW and IMP program, and we were only bringing in really skilled workers that we actually need, and they were going to be employed by legitimate companies, yes, bring your spouse. Because again, we want to attract the best and brightest talent. And if we want to attract the best and brightest talent to work at the best and brightest companies to open up offices here or expand into Canada, we shouldn't be breaking up families. That's my opinion. This is basically just in my opinion, yes, these are like semi, in my opinion, right? Is this one? No, these two, in my opinion, these are unnecessary changes and caps to fix problems that still exist because the government's actually not solving the core problems. The core problems are too many students are coming for BS programs at schools that probably shouldn't even exist because they're just taking as many students as they can to collect money. And that's why there's too many of them. Too many people are making too much money, right? The schools, the agents, everyone's making too much money because the government chose not to regulate pretty much anything for 10 years, right? So that's why we have the influx of students. We don't have to cap it because there's too many coming in. There's too many coming in because there's been zero regulation. So everything has just been exploding in numbers. Plus fraud, plus document forgery, all that kind of stuff. Again, to the work permit side, capping spouses is not actually required. The problem is there's way too many people coming in through these programs because the government doesn't regulate them. They don't do compliance measures properly for LMIAs. There's so much fraud going on in the LMI industry that too many people are using it and making money off of it. It's not a problem with having LMIAs. It's a problem that they don't regulate the LMIAs, so it's turned into this complete disaster, right? Again, this is my opinion. Take it with a grain of salt and or let me know what you think. Sharma says, aren't these changes to please the Canadians to vote for Liberals? Yes. So, Sharma, that's a great way of kind of wrapping up my opinion, which is, why is the government doing this? The government is doing this because, as I said earlier, they have done nothing for 10 years, and all of these programs have ballooned out of control because they've done nothing for 10 years. So now they're coming in with sweeping caps and reductions so that they can go and say, hey, you don't like immigration now because we ruined it? Well, we're going to start capping immigration. Now are you happy with us? You know what I mean? But again, if you talk to virtually any Canadian immigration professional, because I talk to a fair amount of them, the consensus is caps will not solve the core underlying problems. So the government is coming in, slapping caps everywhere. It's not going to fix core underlying problems. It's not going to fix fraud. So I think most of this is unnecessary. Lou says, hey Josh, hello from me and Sam Escobar. Hey Lou, thanks for tuning in. Hey to you and Sam. Hope your week has been going well. And if you guys have any opinions on this news, please feel free to chime in. I'm always open to it. Let's keep reading. There's just a little bit left here. Like many countries, Canada is experiencing more asylum claims as the number of displaced people worldwide continues to grow, and that contributes to growing temporary resident volumes. Well, also because you're putting in all these caps, and all the desperate temporary residents who now can't get PR are turning to any other option that they can, such as an asylum claim, right? Like we've been reading in the news, how the number of asylum claims has jumped like crazy. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of legitimate asylum claims, right? I'm not saying they're all BS, but I bet you the number of BS asylum claims in the last, 6 to 12 months have ballooned as well. Because again, the government actually isn't fixing core problems. They're making PR harder. They're making TR harder. And so what's a person going to do? Are they just going to hop on a plane and go home? No, they're going to do whatever they can. Or whatever the shady dealers are telling them works these days, right? To align with our H&C responsibilities, the government has been working on several measures to address integrity issues and strengthen the in-Canada asylum system, including implementing a partial visa requirements for Mexican nationals. I think that's an unnecessarily plural at the end. Improving claims processing while maintaining the fairness and integrity of the asylum system, as announced in 2024. Improving claims processing. That's a little bit vague, but maybe I just should read that announcement from 2024. I don't remember what the details are. Reviewing visa decision-making so that our highly trained officers have the right tools to detect fraud and reduce the number of non-genuine visitors. Okay. This is the kind of stuff that we need more of across the board. So it's good that they seem to be doing this for asylum claims. I hope they do more of this type of stuff for everything. Study permits, LMIAs, work permits. Exploring more measures to further strengthen visa integrity. Now, we'll have to wait and see what this exploration brings up, but this is the stuff that is actually quite important, so I'm happy to see it here. Actions we have taken, as well as the additional steps announced today, will strengthen our immigration system and help address the changing needs of our country. We have listened to Canadians, including our provincial territory, and other blah, blah. We will continue to blah-bitty-blue. Okay, so that's kind of it. Again, I'll let you read the whole thing if you'd like. There's a few more details down here. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Lou says we echo your points. Awesome. Yes. So it's always nice when someone smart like Lou echoes some of my thoughts. But a lot of my thoughts are, number one, I think relatively logical, having been in this industry for 8 or 9 years now. And number two is talking to a lot of immigration professionals, right? At Visto, we provide software and automation for immigration law firms in Canada. So by extension, I end up talking to a lot of immigration lawyers and a lot of immigration consultants. And the consensus seems to be that, yes, something has to be done, but it seems like most of what the government has done in 2024 is just started capping everything. Caps are not the solution. They can be part of a solution. But again, let's go to the core problems. The core problems are, in a lot of these cases, if we look at the work permit industry, if we look at the international student industry, a lot of the core problems relate to fraud, document forgery, taking advantage of programs that shouldn't be used in certain situations, and not too much of this talks to that. What I would love to see more of is the government getting a little bit harder on so in the international student side, I'd love to see the government getting and they're starting to, or they're claiming to, right, is get a lot harder on schools. Who can be a DLI and who can't? How many students each school can have? Ongoing compliance to make sure that they're actually offering good programs that are helping solve market needs, et cetera, et cetera. And some of the changes that they've mentioned in 2024 have directly addressed those things. So I think that's good. I hope they're heading in the right direction in the international student space. I haven't yet seen too much on the work permit side. There's a huge problem with LMIA fraud right now. But what concerns me is when they say making labor market impact assessments more rigorous to mitigate fraud. We don't need these So what this means for those not in immigration is if you go to sponsor somebody through the temporary foreign worker program, the company has to apply for an LMIA. The problem here is that if you make the LMIA too difficult, you're actually going to turn away legitimate companies from using it. Right now, there's a lot of illegitimate companies using it to make money illegally off of workers and take advantage of them. We don't need more rigorous assessments. We need more fine-tuned assessments that are specifically pointed at finding fraudulent actors, better compliance tracking, better compliance monitoring, so that we can find and get rid of the illegitimate employers, but we actually want to make it easier on the legitimate employers so that we don't turn them away from using the LMIA program, which is why it was designed, right? It was designed so that legitimate Canadian employers with legitimate market needs can sponsor foreign talent, right? So I hope they don't lose sight of this. I hope this part that I've highlighted doesn't just mean we're going to make LMIAs harder for everybody, because nobody wins there. The companies that actually need it will then lose because they'll stop using it because it's too much of a pain, right? So anyways, that is my take there. Let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think IRCC is heading in the right direction? All that fun stuff. Time for my patented segue sip as we head into the next topic. Express entry draws. Oh my God. Express entry. Just when you think you've noticed a pattern, they come along and switch it up entirely. So again, here's the link to the recent express entry draws. I will put a link in the comments if you're watching on LinkedIn, and you will also see it in the description on YouTube. Now, what you'll notice here is, number one, we had a draw yesterday, so we'll talk about that. But it's interesting because what I was going to talk about is for the many previous draws. So you can see the last draw in August was a CEC and a PNP. Middle of August, CEC, PNP, and an industry-specific draw. Then there was just CEC, and PNP. Now, what happened last week, which I found kind of odd, is they did a PNP draw and they did a French language proficiency draw. And I was like, well, where the heck is the CEC draw, right? Because they've been doing CEC and PNP draws together for months and months now, and there wasn't one. Now, I don't know why. You'll notice here, usually the sets of draws are about 2 weeks apart. Interestingly, last week, the draws were 4 days apart. And then yesterday, they randomly did a CEC draw, inviting 4,000. So I don't know, maybe I'm missing something, but I don't know why these are spread out the way they are. Maybe there was a technical reason or something else. I don't know. If anybody has any ideas, please let me know, because I have no clue. But kind of a weird week for express entry, right? Usually they do 2 or 3 draws, and they're one day after another, right? So you can see here, August 27th, August 26th, August 15th, August 14th, August 13th, July 31st, July 30th, July 18th, 17th, 16th. Right? So for some reason, I don't know why, could be no reason at all, right? Maybe it's just they click the button when they click the button. Another CEC draw, PNP draw, and French language proficiency draw. PNP obviously makes sense. They have to keep inviting those people who are getting PNP approvals. CEC, in my opinion, makes sense. There's a large number of temporary residents in Canada, and CEC favors them, and they should probably be prioritized. I mean, we could have a whole debate on whether we should be prioritizing those inside Canada versus abroad, but we'll save that for another time. French language, I still think is being overused. I can't believe how many French language proficiency draws. Like you can see here, pretty much over the last, let's scroll down here, over the last 3-4 months, they've only done French language proficiency draws. They haven't done any in healthcare, STEM, et cetera, et cetera. You can see early July was the last time they did a non-French language proficiency. So I guess they're kind of pandering to their French focus, maybe to their friends in Quebec, right? They're looking for votes wherever they can get them these days. So maybe they're trying to pander to their French folks. But even still, this doesn't make sense because express entry is not, you can't come through express entry to live in Quebec. So it doesn't make sense, right? So I think they're just pandering maybe a little bit to their French friends. I have no idea. But anyways, what are we going to do? So anyways, those are kind of my key thoughts and ideas there on express entry. Sharma says, and more to come on high-wage LMIAs. Yes, I still think that there is plenty to come in terms of even just for the rest of this year, right? We're going to see interesting express entry stuff. We're going to see further updates and further details provided related to LMIAs, work permits, et cetera, et cetera. So stay tuned is all I'll say there. Anyways, let's finish up with a couple more items. Number 1, CIPP, Canadian Immigration Pros Podcast. If you like my content, if you like hearing immigration nerds talk about immigration stuff, definitely check out the Canadian Immigration Pros Podcast. I'm going to throw this link in the chat. On this podcast, it's basically me interviewing fellow Canadian immigration practitioners, so immigration lawyers, immigration consultants, and we do deep dives on a wide variety of topics. You can see we talk about running immigration firms, spousal sponsorship appeals, AIP, PNPs, JRs, international students, refusals. There's an episode on almost anything at this point. So if you're an immigration nerd like myself, I highly recommend checking it out at the link below. You can watch the episodes on YouTube, or you can just listen to the audio on your favorite podcast platform of your choice. Andy's chiming in saying informative. Hey, Andy, thanks very much for tuning in. Hope your week has gone well, and thanks for the kind words. Lastly, some big updates in Visto this week. That I'll quickly highlight. For those of you who don't know, immigration. Visto is an immigration platform that helps Canadian immigration law firms basically optimize all their processes, right? AI research and writing, document drafting, application preparation. We've added some really cool stuff specifically this week. Document drafting, so you can like build a template for a cover letter, retainer once, use it over and over again. We have our application review screen. So now all you have to do, I don't know if this is a completed application, so it might not actually pull up much. So my fake application hasn't been completed yet, but we have this new bird's eye view, so you can review your client forms and supporting documents all on one screen. So you don't need like the dual monitor type stuff, which is kind of convenient. We added in a summary tab at the bottom here, so you can see, again, my fake application doesn't have much information to track, but you can track any comments, notes, requests, reminders that have gone on this application. We have, what else did we add? Oh, we added user permissions, so you can manage, different users in your law firm and what they have access to. We added activity logs, so you can see, what your client did and when they logged in, what documents they uploaded, all that kind of fun stuff. So anyways, if you're a Canadian immigration practitioner and trying to streamline or automate more of your process, then definitely check us out at Visto.ai. You can also just reach out to me directly, but you'll certainly find the most information on our website at Visto.ai. So anyways, without further ado, I think that's usually said at the beginning of a show, not the end. I'm going to wrap it up there. Hopefully you found this helpful, entertaining, perhaps educational. It'll be interesting to see as more changes continue and also as some of these reported changes get fleshed out, right? So what do they mean by better aligning the PGWP with immigration goals and labor market needs? We should know in the fall. What do they mean by work permit eligibility for spouses later this year? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. As they say, time will tell. Anyways, thanks everybody again for tuning in. Really appreciate it. If you are watching on LinkedIn, please feel free to like, connect with me, all that fun stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, a like, subscribe, comment if you have any thoughts really helps as well. Thank you again for tuning in. Hopefully you found it helpful. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.